Michael Jordan was in the middle of a crucial playoff game when he noticed an 87-year-old black veteran slowly standing up in the crowd. Something about the way the old man moved made Jordan call a timeout that shocked everyone. What this veteran told him about playing basketball during segregation would expose a history Jordan never knew existed and change how he viewed his own success forever. It was May 18, 1998. Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals at the United Center in Chicago. The Bulls were up by 6 points with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Michael Jordan was in the zone. He'd already scored 42 points and was putting on a performance that had the crowd on their feet. The energy in the arena was electric, the kind of atmosphere that only playoff basketball can create. Fans were screaming, the opposing team was scrambling to find answers, and Jordan was doing what he did best, dominating the game when it mattered most. But then something caught Jordan's eye that made him stop mid-play. In section 107, about 12 rows up from the court, an elderly black man was slowly, painfully rising to his feet. He was wearing a weathered military jacket decorated with medals, and his movements were deliberate and difficult, as if every inch of standing required tremendous effort. What struck Jordan wasn't just that the man was standing. Thousands of fans had been on their feet all game. It was something about the way he stood, with a dignity and purpose that transcended the excitement of the game. The old man wasn't celebrating or cheering. He was standing at attention, his eyes locked on Jordan with an intensity that was impossible to ignore. Jordan had the ball and was supposed to be running a play, but he found himself distracted, looking up at this elderly veteran whose presence seemed to command attention despite being surrounded by thousands of younger, louder fans. The referee blew the whistle, confused about why Jordan had stopped moving. Jordan's teammates called out to him, trying to get his attention back on the game. But Jordan couldn't look away from the old man in section 107. Then Jordan did something that shocked everyone in the building. He called timeout. The Bulls still had 2 timeouts left, so it wasn't a tactical error, but the timing made no sense. They were winning, they had momentum, and there were only 4 minutes left in a crucial playoff game. This was not the time for an unnecessary timeout. Phil Jackson, the Bulls' coach, looked at Jordan in confusion. "Michael, what are you doing?" Jordan didn't answer his coach. Instead, he walked directly to the scorer's table and asked the security supervisor to bring the elderly veteran from section 107 down to the court. "Michael, we're in the middle of a playoff game," the supervisor said, equally confused. "I know," Jordan replied firmly, "but that man needs to be down here." Now the referee was trying to restart the game, the opposing team was confused, and the crowd was murmuring, trying to understand what was happening. But Jordan refused to resume play until his request was honored. Within minutes, security had escorted the elderly veteran down to courtside. The man moved slowly, using a cane, and as he approached Jordan, the entire arena seemed to quiet down, sensing that something significant was happening. When the veteran reached the court, Jordan extended his hand. The old man took it, and Jordan could feel the strength in that grip, a strength that had endured decades of struggles Jordan could only imagine. "Sir, what's your name?" Jordan asked. "James Washington," the veteran replied, his voice steady despite his age. "But my friends used to call me Jump Shot James back when I played ball." Jordan's eyes widened. "You played basketball?" James nodded slowly. "I played in the Negro Basketball League from 1948 to 1956. Back when black men like you and me couldn't play in the same gyms, couldn't use the same locker rooms, couldn't even drink from the same water fountains as white players." The arena had gone completely silent. The referees, sensing the importance of this moment, didn't try to restart the game. Players from both teams had gathered around to listen. The crowd, confused at first, now understood that they were witnessing something far more significant than basketball. "Mr. Jordan," James continued, "I traveled 400 miles to see you play tonight because I wanted to see with my own eyes what we fought for. I wanted to see a black man dominate basketball in an arena full of people who paid to watch him, in a building where he's celebrated as the greatest to ever play the game." Jordan felt emotion welling up in his chest. "Mr. Washington, I had no idea there was a Negro Basketball League. They didn't teach us that in school," James smiled sadly. They didn't teach a lot of things in school, son. They didn't teach you about the black players who barnstormed across America, playing in segregated gyms, getting paid a fraction of what white players made, sleeping in their cars because hotels wouldn't rent them rooms. The old veteran's eyes grew distant, remembering. We played in gymnasiums where we had to enter through the back door. We played in arenas where black fans had to sit in separate sections. We played games where if we won by too much, we'd face violence afterward because we'd embarrassed the white team. Jordan was holding James's hand now, tears forming in his eyes, as he listened to a history he'd never been taught, a history that made his own success possible. "We loved basketball just as much as you do," James said. "We practiced just as hard, dreamed just as big. But we played knowing that no matter how good we were, we'd never be allowed to compete in the NBA. We played knowing that history might forget us entirely." "Mr. Washington," Jordan said, his voice thick with emotion, "why did you keep playing if you knew you'd never get the recognition you deserved?" James looked Jordan directly in the eyes. "Because we knew that someday a young black boy would get the chance we never had. We knew that if we kept playing, kept proving our worth, kept showing that black excellence in basketball was undeniable, then eventually the doors would have to open." The old veteran's grip on Jordan's hand tightened. "We played for you, Michael. Every game we played in those segregated gyms, every night we slept in our cars, every time we entered through the back door, we were playing for the Michael Jordans who would come after us." Jordan broke down. Right there on the court, in the middle of a playoff game, in front of 20,000 people and millions watching on television, Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in the world, stood crying as he held the hand of a man whose name had been erased from basketball history. "I never knew," Jordan said through his tears. "I never knew what you sacrificed so I could be here." James Washington looked around the United Center, at the sold-out crowd, at the expensive seats, at the massive scoreboard displaying Jordan's stats, at the jerseys bearing Jordan's name and number. "Mr. Jordan, can I ask you something?" "Anything, sir." "When you walk onto this court, do you ever think about the black players who couldn't? When you score your points, do you remember that we couldn't even keep official statistics? When they chant your name, do you hear the echoes of the players whose names were never chanted at all?" The question hung in the air like a challenge and an invitation. Jordan realized that James wasn't asking these questions to shame him, but to remind him that his success was built on a foundation of sacrifice that extended far beyond his own hard work. "No, sir," Jordan admitted honestly. "I haven't thought about those things enough, but I will now." "I promise you that." Jordan turned to the crowd, and even though the microphone wasn't on, his voice carried through the silent arena. "This is James Washington. From 1948 to 1956, he played professional basketball in the Negro Basketball League. He played in segregated gyms. He faced discrimination that I will never fully understand. And he did it so that black players like me could one day stand where I'm standing." Jordan's voice grew stronger, more passionate. "Mr. Washington never made millions of dollars. He never played on national television. History books don't mention his name. But without players like him, without their sacrifice and their persistence, I wouldn't be here. None of us would be here." Jordan looked at James with deep respect. "Mr. Washington, I want to dedicate the rest of this game to you and to every black player who came before me. And I want to make you a promise. I'm going to make sure your story and the stories of players like you are never forgotten again." The arena erupted in applause, but it wasn't the usual cheering after a great play. It was something deeper, the sound of 20,000 people recognizing a debt that had gone unpaid for too long. When play resumed, something had shifted in the building. This was no longer just a basketball game. It had become something sacred, a tribute to the generations of black athletes who had paved the way. Jordan played the final 4 minutes with a purpose that transcended competition. Every move he made, every shot he took, felt like an act of remembrance. He finished the game with 51 points, but the number felt insignificant compared to the weight of what had been revealed. After the final buzzer, Jordan didn't celebrate with his teammates or do his usual post-game routine. Instead, he walked directly to James Washington, who was now seated courtside, and knelt before him. "Mr. Washington, would you do me the honor of coming to our championship celebration? I want you there. You've earned it more than any of us." James's eyes filled with tears. "Son, just seeing you play tonight was enough. Just knowing that our sacrifices mattered, that they led to this. That's all I needed." "No, sir," Jordan said firmly. "It's not enough. You deserve to be celebrated. You deserve to be remembered. And I'm going to spend the rest of my career making sure that happens." True to his word, Michael Jordan established the Negro Basketball League Historical Foundation within 3 months of meeting James Washington. The foundation's mission was to document, preserve, and celebrate the stories of black basketball players who competed during segregation. Jordan personally funded researchers to track down surviving players from the Negro Basketball League, to collect their stories, to digitize photographs and records that had been forgotten in attics and basements across America. He created a traveling museum exhibit that toured NBA arenas, educating new generations about the players who came before the integration of professional basketball. He insisted that NBA arenas display plaques honoring Negro League players, ensuring their names would be remembered alongside the modern stars they made possible. Most significantly, Jordan established a pension fund for surviving Negro Basketball League players and their families, providing financial support to men and women who had given everything to the game but received little in return. "These players built the foundation I stand on," Jordan explained when announcing the foundation. "The least I can do is make sure they're standing with me." James Washington lived 4 more years after meeting Michael Jordan. During those years, he was honored at multiple NBA games, interviewed by sports historians, and finally recognized as the pioneer he had always been. Jordan visited James regularly, sitting with the old veteran and learning stories about Negro League basketball that had never been recorded. Those conversations profoundly changed how Jordan understood his own place in basketball history. "James taught me that I'm not just playing for championships," Jordan reflected. "I'm carrying forward a legacy that includes players whose names I'll never know, whose statistics were never recorded, whose talent was suppressed by racism and discrimination." When James Washington passed away in 2002, Michael Jordan spoke at his funeral. James Washington died knowing that his sacrifice wasn't in vain. He died knowing that the struggles of his generation opened doors for mine. He died knowing that he would be remembered not as a forgotten player, but as a founding father of black excellence in basketball. Today, the Negro Basketball League Historical Foundation has documented over 1,200 players who competed during segregation. Their stories are taught in schools, displayed in museums, and celebrated at NBA games across the country. Every NBA arena now has a designated section honoring pre-integration black basketball players, ensuring that fans understand the full history of the game they're watching. The foundation also provides scholarships for students researching African American sports history, ensuring that future generations will continue uncovering and celebrating stories that were deliberately erased from the historical record. "Meeting James Washington changed my life," Jordan has said repeatedly. "It taught me that success isn't just about individual achievement. It's about honoring those who made your success possible and ensuring their sacrifices are never forgotten." The lesson from that playoff game in 1998 is profound. We stand on the shoulders of giants we never knew existed. The opportunities we have, the freedoms we enjoy, the success we achieve, all of it was built on foundations laid by people whose names we may never learn, but whose sacrifices we must never forget. James Washington and thousands of other black basketball players played in segregated gyms, faced discrimination, and persevered without recognition. They did it knowing that Michael Jordan's greatest legacy isn't his 6 championships or his scoring records. It's his commitment to ensuring that the James Washingtons of basketball history are finally given the honor and recognition they deserved all along. If this powerful story of sacrifice, recognition, and honoring forgotten heroes moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the importance of knowing our history and honoring those who came before us. Do you know the hidden heroes in your family or community who paved the way? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more stories that connect generations and celebrate the struggles that made our success possible.